Hey guys, how's it going? Matt from Code Tech and Tutorials. I want to talk about how to actually make successful stuff, whether it be software. Well, this is mainly software. Actually, this is going to be kind of pigeonholed into how to make your software viable for a long period of time. And this is really all taken from Jim Keller's take on this. As you can see, he has a long list of credentials that make him highly qualified to give such advice. So yeah, he's worked for Apple, Tesla, AMD. Okay, so Jim was on the Lex podcast, and he was basically saying most people don't think simple enough, but that's not the part I want to take away from this because he says something really important here about managing your software and keeping it viable and fast enough for the modern era. And this is something that I have personally experienced, which I'll show you a little later. It's kind of a small example, but it's something that where I kind of had this experience too. And hearing this was like, yeah, that happened to me too. Okay, I don't want to like steal too much of this, but I think it's important that we watch from this section for just about a minute, and hopefully it doesn't get claimed or something. But this kind of builds upon the rest of the context I want to show you. So let's just take a moment and listen.
So common practice is you build a computer, and then when somebody says, I want to make it 10% faster, you'll go in and say, all right, I need to make this buffer bigger, and maybe I'll add an add unit. Or, I have this thing that's 3 instructions wide. I'm going to make it 4 instructions wide. Right. And what you see is each piece gets incrementally more complicated, right? And then at some point you hit this limit.
Okay, that's important. Eventually you hit a limit with things you can add, some kind of fundamental limit based on the design you went with way back when you first made the stuff or whatever it is. So I'm going to hit play here and just listen to this next part.
And then somebody else will look at it and say, well, actually the way you divided the problem up and the way that different features are interacting is limiting you, and it has to be rethought, rewritten.
There we go. Has to be rethought and rewritten. I'm running into this right now with the game engine I've been working on. It's convoluted, it's confusing, I'm having trouble adding features, and I need to rewrite it. That's not even the example I was talking about just a moment ago. I have a real one of something that's more finished that I did. I'll show you, but this is highly relatable to what I'm doing. So I've been working on this game engine for like 2 years, and I hit a wall recently of just doesn't seem to work correctly anymore. So yes, I will be rewriting it on stream, so check out my stream. It's either going to be twitch.tv/bytepro17128, or I might just change it back to my name.
So then you refactor it and rewrite it, and what people commonly find is the rewrite is not only faster, but half as complicated.
Yes, half is complicated and faster. It's a win-win, right? Okay, there's a little more to this. Okay, jumping forward a little bit.
To just throw the whole thing out and
this
start
is where I'm on one end of it, every 3 to 5 years.
Which end are you on?
3 to 5 years. Okay, this is about right for my game engine because it's been about 3 years, so I think it's time. I'm just finding a way to relate it to me personally, but for you, you might be working on something you've been working on for 3 to 5 years and hit a wall, or it's hard to advance anymore. You might be in the same boat where you just need to start over and rewrite and simplify it.
Wait,
rewrite more often.
Rewrite, and 3 to 5 years is.
So if you want to really make a lot of progress on computer architecture, every 5 years you should do one from scratch.
It's for the greater good. This is where he mentions kind of what the industry tends to do, which is rewrite every 10 years.
There's a tendency to rewrite it every 10 years, and it really should be every 5.
That's a lot of years. If I think about this in terms of that game engine I'm writing, I would sit and dwell on this silly little problems I'm having that are holding me back for another 7 years of my life if I didn't just sit down and rewrite it. That's big. That's okay. So it sounds intimidating to start over, but if it's going to save you 7 years, it's kind of a big deal. All right, let's continue.
You're saying you're an outlier in that sense.
Rewrite more often.
Rewrite more often.
Well, and
isn't that scary?
Yeah, of course. Well, scary to who?
To everybody involved.
It's less scary than you think. From someone who's done it before on a small scale. I don't obviously make microprocessors or OSs or anything, but just on the small scale that I have done this, yeah, it was scary. It was really hard to throw out my old code. but it was definitely worth it because, well, I'll show you in a minute after we're done with watching this.
Because, like you said, repeating the recipe is efficient. Companies want to make money.
This is where you get into diminishing return curves. I think Steve Jobs said this, right? So you have a project and you start here and it goes up and you have diminishing return.
Yep.
And to get to the next level, you have to do a new one. And the initial starting point will be lower than the old optimization point, but it'll get higher.
There you go. Okay, so you have a program or software you're writing, and say this is the starting point, and you make it, it's going pretty good, it goes okay, eventually you hit a limit, and boom. This is where you're doing tiny optimizations. It might get a tiny bit better here and there, but there's no more of this big initial ramp. That big initial ramp is over. And so this is your product, it's successful, it's doing well, but eventually technology advances and it kind of becomes obsolete. It's not really good enough anymore. And you're a big successful company, and you got to maintain it. So what do? You just keep working on it, and trying to get it a little higher, and trying really hard, putting in tons of work for every little increase. Or what you do is you just go, all right, well, we'll leave a team to, fix bugs or whatever over here. We'll also have someone just start a rewrite. Or maybe you're just a solo person. So what you do is you say, all right, let's scrap all this. Let's redo it. Let's make the logic better. Let's simplify it. So say you start here. The starting point, it's not as good as your old project is. I guess I'm kind of making this time down here. I'll just call it T. And this is like usefulness, I guess, usefulness scale. So you start down here. But what happens is with this new logic and this better setup, you get the nice ramp up again. What happens is you end up quite quickly above the old optimized level. But you did have to take a step back before you could take 2 steps forward. And what you do is you do that again, basically. You get to a higher point than you ever would have. You would have never gotten here. Maybe like 30 years of optimizations eventually, the slow climb, but you could do it real quickly by just doing the rewrite and boom, getting that big scale up. I've definitely experienced this too, and maybe we'll watch just a little bit more, and then I'll show you the examples of my projects here. Okay, back to the clip.
People with a quarter by quarter business objective are terrified about changing everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if he gets into this here, but I forget where I saw this, but it's basically the marketing team. Once you have a successful product, the marketing team wants to keep pushing it, and they don't want to start over because they can't say right off the bat that it's better. So I guess you have a hidden project behind the scenes where you're redoing it, and you just don't let the marketing team know or something, because all they care about is getting the sales. They might not even know how this stuff works, but. All right, let's watch a little bit more.
And people who are trying to run a business or build a computer for a long-term objective know that the short-term limitations block them from the long-term success. Leaders of companies that had really good long-term success, every time they saw that they had to redo something, they did.
And so somebody has to.
Okay, and there he says it again. All the companies that have had good long-term success, when they saw they needed to redo something, they simply just did. All right, I'll show you my project. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's going to be hard to show because I don't have the old stuff, but I'll still show it anyway. Okay, it's mainly this piece of software. I started writing this. I had only been coding for about a year with C++ when I started writing this in C++. So it's not the greatest, but I experienced exactly what he said there. I tried to, okay, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory about this. It's called DEmpower. It's just a little Dungeons and Dragons terminal app for dungeon masters to help assist you when you're DMing and basically make your game a whole lot faster, so you don't have to go digging through books for every little thing and come up with ideas on the fly. That might be hard to figure out. All right, you see it only has 2 stars. It did at one point have like 50 some, and then I made it private for a while because I was kind of scared of Wizards of the Coast suing me or something, because it's kind of is their intellectual property in a lot of ways. I'm using a lot of stuff from their books, but I don't know if it matters. I don't make any money off of it. It's just an open source thing. They have some product where you can sign on and get all their stuff, but in my mind, their product is terrible. Actually, I really can't stand their product. I'll show you it, I guess. All right, yeah, it's this one, D&D Beyond. This did not exist when I started making my piece of software. D&D Beyond was not a thing when I first started writing DM Power. So they came out with this like when I was mostly done with my software. So I had no idea that they were basically doing it. This is basically the same thing, except theirs is, well, obviously it's more robust, but also you always have to be connected to the internet. It crashes all the time. Their web page rarely loads correctly. It's pretty terrible. Even like I played with a new group of D&D players and they all use D&D Beyond. And like half the session was them complaining about D&D Beyond not working and I was just like, and so I just used my software instead and I don't know, it's fine. It's a little it's not as like user friendly. You gotta be used to like terminal stuff, I guess, and be happy with that. But D&D Beyond's for like iPads and touchscreen stuff is really nice for that. But it also costs money, of course. Yeah, in my experience, it's not very. It's pretty buggy and crappy. I wasn't a fan. I didn't like it. It was really sad to see a bunch of people paying for it and buying it and it just crashing on them. So anyway, DM Power. I wrote this many times over. I started over so many times. I was trying to figure stuff out. I must have had like 20 versions of this that I scrapped before I got to this one that's actually up here that works correctly and works good. I've had a few contributors help out with it. Um, I'm sure it would be a lot bigger if I didn't private it for like half a year and lose all its reputation basically, but it's starting to build some up slowly. It's got 2 already. But yeah, at one point it did. And I think this actually got me a job at one point because I interviewed for a company and they looked at my GitHub and saw I had a C++ program with a bunch of stars and they were like, oh, okay, yeah. It was basically an auto hire. It was pretty cool. But yeah, then I got scared, got frightened from Wizards of the Coast. Someone left a comment that said you can't do that or something, and I was trying to look into it and figure it out. And eventually I just said, screw it, I'll just put it back up. What's the worst that could happen? They could send me a takedown notice. Okay. It's a loss to the community, not really to me. I'll just maintain it privately. Well, I don't know. Maybe it'll go good. Maybe they'll say like, hey, we'll make you an offer for this or something. I don't know. I don't really advertise this normally or anything, so it's kind of just found naturally if it does get found. So I have all these old versions of times I've updated it. I haven't updated it since mid last year. Usually when there's updates to the game or a new book comes out, I would update it and add all the new stuff. I would add all the new classes. There was a giant update here where I added in all these classes and races, or just races, I guess. I really like it. I use it all the time when I'm playing because it's just so much faster than looking up stuff in the books and looking up charts. This just has everything built in, and it's really fast because C++. Heck yeah. But the point is, the first version of this, totally scrapped. Second version, scrapped. Third version, scrapped. Fourth version, I was kind of happy with. It was going okay, but then I hit limits of stuff where I was doing things in weird ways, and I couldn't continue the software the way I wanted. I can't remember, I couldn't get like subclasses working right, or there was something that I couldn't get working right. So I completely scrapped it and started over yet again, and I experienced this, my goodness, this drawing's so terrible. I experienced this, where I had a version that would go like this, and when I would hit limits and it had a really hard time improving. So I just have to start over and lose everything and do it again and do it again. And eventually I got to a point where I was happy and I'm not rewriting it. But as of right now, I'm pretty sure this needs rewritten again because it kind of has hit a limit. It's very hard to update. It's a lot of code to update, to add classes and stuff. So there's probably a better way of doing it. Now, I'm sure there is. I started writing this when I had only been coding in C++ for about a year. And I just wanted a project to work on because school wasn't cutting it. Like I would get, we would get labs and stuff for computer science, but like it wasn't enough. I would have this whole summer off where I had literally no coding to do unless I came up with my own thing. And that's where this came in. I was playing D&D with some friends and I was like, hey, I could just write some software to save us a bunch of time because we're just digging through books, wasting like 10 minutes here and there. And so I did. I don't know. I did have a group I played with where we all used this, and it was a good time. It was a really good time. Now, I might publish that campaign one day, but who knows? I guess that's my big example. Is I actually experienced this many years ago, right here on this piece of software. So I just thought that was cool, and now I'm experiencing it again. Yeah, I'm really railing this. I'm really railing this in pretty hard. I know you guys have got it a long time ago and have probably clicked away, but for those of you that are still here, I appreciate you. And I guess that's pretty much the end of it. And the whole takeaway is if you're struggling with your piece of software and having a really hard time getting it any further, it's probably time to just rewrite the thing. All right, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys. You can support me on Patreon if you want to see more of these videos. Please let me know your feedback in the comments, and I don't know, I'll see you in the next video, or maybe on Twitch, or I don't know, maybe on the Discord. It's a private Discord. You have to join Patreon to get on there, but I do respond very quickly to anything you ask me, and I'll also review your stuff if you have anything you want me to review. Just sign up for any of the tiers on Patreon and send me a link, and if it's really interesting, I might even ask if it's okay if I make a video about it. So I don't know. Holler. Matt out. Peace, guys.